it.
Perfect.
Okay, please help me welcome David Richman. He's out in the world inspiring deeper human connection through life-changing stories. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, so excited for today and all that you have to offer. I feel like you have a lot of hope and inspiration that you're about to pour over our Direction, Not Perfection audience. So, could you fill us in a little bit on your background and personally, professionally?
Sure. I was raised in Southern California, kind of a wacky childhood. Had a super, super, super young mom and a super, super old mom, or old dad rather, about 40 years difference in age between the two. And so pretty much spent my childhood alone. Mom didn't want to be around kids because she was so young. She didn't really know how to take care of them. Dad definitely didn't want to be around kids because he was way too old.
Oh,
So I'm just kind of went on my own. That probably led to me not having a whole lot of direction in life. Um, when I was 18, I left home, not under great circumstances. My car broke down in Vegas, and there I was. And I know this is a different time, but I'll say it anyway. I started smoking when I was about 18, maybe 17 or so. And a couple of days after I got to Vegas, I got robbed at gunpoint. The only thing I had left to my name was a carton of Merit 100 cigarettes, and so I was parked behind a Ralph's supermarket and the outskirts of Vegas with nothing to eat and 56 cents in my pocket, and
oh my gosh.
ate cigarettes for about 3 days, and then said, "Man, I got to figure this out." So that was my like kind of eye-opening, like, "Holy cow, I'm an adult now" moment.
Yeah.
Um, I spent like the next, I don't know, maybe like 20 years just getting out of holes and or digging myself holes and getting out of them. I started businesses. I self-educated. um I did a lot of different things. I worked really hard because I kind of had to. Felt like I was always like behind the curve or whatever. um
Hmm.
but then in my early 30s I went into finance, and that seemed to suit me really well, so I was pretty successful. But along the way, really didn't have a whole lot of self-awareness. I definitely didn't care for myself. I just figured out a way to survive. Um, I continued to smoke. I also had a very pretty sedentary lifestyle. So I was not active. And thus, when you are not active and you're full of stress and you're, even if you're running around like a crazy person, you're just going to gain weight. And I was
Yeah.
about 50 pounds overweight and going through just a horrible set of circumstances. Stress wise, I was in an abusive relationship. I had to get me and my two kids, I had 4-year-old twins at the time, out of that. Um, and then I did. And my sister at that time called me and said, "Hey, bro, I got some bad news. I'm gonna die soon. I got brain cancer." And
Oh,
I'm just like, "Oh my God, like what the hell?" And
yeah.
so I just took this deep breath and went, "Man, this is not right. I mean, there's something wrong. There's literally something wrong here." And I'll never forget, Lindsay. I was, my kids and I were finally safe, right? We were whatever. And there's all this stress in my life. And I just remember standing up in front of the mirror going, like, "Dude, who the hell are you? And what are you doing? Like, who do you want to be? Because this
Yeah.
sucks. Like, this sucks." Right. And so that's when I just said, hell, maybe I should try to be athletic. Maybe that's what I should try to be instead of being like a smoker and a heavy drinker and a heavy eater and a, full of stress dude. Why don't you just like change your life? Like, why don't you just do it? Long answer. Sorry, but that's the background.
No, I thought you were going to keep going. That's why I'm shushing. You're fascinating. And holy cow. And so you truly had this moment of, some people call it the light bulb moment, the epiphany
Mhm.
moment, but that I'm going to change or I need to change is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I know it sounds trite because everybody goes through tough times or whatever. I mean, there's not, and a lot of the tough times that we make that we have are self-inflicted. Sometimes they're not, but For me, Lindsay, it was like, I don't know, once I felt like I finally did the right thing, which was I came to an awareness, right? Like I hit this moment of awareness, and it's kind of personal, and I'll tell you in your audience, but it's not like I don't think about it every day or anything, but it
Yeah.
was the first point of self-awareness. I was in this huge fight with my ex-wife, and she just screamed at me. She said, I'm not your mother. And I went, oh no, you literally are exactly my mother. Like, you're the person that I don't have any relationship with. I am trying to make you happy. I never will. You're mean.
Hmm.
You hate people. And yeah, I tried to marry my mother so that I could figure out how to mend that
To
relationship that
fix
never
it.
was
Hmm.
and to fix it. And I went, holy cow, man, what a dope. Now, if you're doing big things like that without thinking about it, maybe you should start thinking about the things you're doing. Do you
Oh,
know, like
interesting.
that? I mean, how do you find yourself in that situation and be unaware? And I was just like, wow. I mean, how stupid can you be? You got to start proactively, like looking at the things that you're doing, because here you are. How'd you get 50 pounds overweight? How'd you become a
Right.
20-year smoker? How'd you find yourself in a relationship that you had no idea what the hell you were doing? Like, how is that possible? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I figured that most of my things in life, I wasn't like making conscious decisions. I wasn't, um, if I wasn't making smart decisions. I wasn't doing it for me, right? I was doing it because I wanted to make somebody else happy, or I wanted to be a better employee so that my boss would give me a raise or whatever, right?
Right.
And I just didn't do it for me. And I know, like, you as a health and fitness expert, like, if you're trying to get in shape because you want to make your boyfriend or girlfriend happy, it's never going to work, right?
Yeah.
It might for a
Yeah.
minute, but it's never going to work, right?
Right.
If you're doing it because you think that you should look like something that's inside of a magazine, it's never going to work, right? You
Right.
gotta you gotta at some point go, this is who I am, this is who I want to be. What do I have to do to bridge that gap? And for me, it didn't come till much later in life. And
Yeah.
that was the start of my foray into endurance athletics.
So there's a piece of me though, I wish it would have come for you earlier in life, but I feel like the inspiring part about this too is that a lot of people feel like once they've hit a certain age and move
Hmm.
past a place that it's no longer for them or in their cards to be
Hmm.
the best version of themselves or healthy or thriving, and you're debunking that theory that you're like, here, I'm living proof that there's not
Hmm.
there's not a stopping point. It doesn't matter how old did you say, were you 37 when
I
you
was
were?
37 or 38 when that happened, something like that, right there. And I'll tell you, Lindsay, I think there's two kinds of people in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Once you become an adult, there's two kinds. There's people that are driving down the road and they're looking forward, and there's
Hmm.
people that are driving down the road and they're looking in the rearview mirror. Okay. So I feel like as long as I'm looking forward, as long as I think my best days are ahead of me, and
Yeah.
I didn't always think that, right?
Yeah.
I always thought like, oh man, I didn't even contemplate, whether, but I'm sure I was looking in the rearview mirror and not seeing anything, right? But I
Yeah.
was not looking forward because I didn't like consciously go, okay, what am I trying to achieve? Where am I trying to go? What can I be? What can I do? And then when I started that journey of going, let's see what you can do. Like,
Yeah.
let's do it on purpose. It literally started bleeding into every part of my life. And here I am 20 years later. I've done just tons and tons of stupid, you know, long distance events and changed my lifestyle. And it's bled into everything. And here I am 20 years later, and I'm 1,000% convinced. I'm not even partially convinced that my best days are still ahead of me. I'm still
Uh,
looking forward, right? Because
yes.
I'm doing things that I should never be doing, right? So, and if I'm
Which
doing
makes us
them,
need to backtrack. I'm going to interrupt you
right,
because I cut
do
you off earlier. We need to
no.
go from when the endurance sports started,
Hmm.
what this all started to look like for you.
So I like I said, I'm not that smart. Like, I don't figure stuff out real easy, but I did do the easy math, Lindsay. I said, if you want to be an athlete and you want to quit smoking, and I made a little pact with one of my kids to stop smoking. I said, you look really stupid if you were swimming and smoking, right? You look really stupid if you're running and smoking, right? So don't just figure it out. Like make that your smoking, right? I know one of your guests recently, they said something like sitting on the couch is the new smoking or something like that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I look like a real idiot if I would go to the swimming pool and start doing laps on my back with a cigarette in my mouth. I look like an idiot, right? So that
Plop
was
out
the
of the
way.
pool, take a bath, jump
Exactly.
back in.
So I didn't, it wasn't exactly linear, but I pretty much replaced athletics with smoking, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Replaced the smoking with the
With
athletics.
the
So
athletics.
the
Yeah.
first thing
Yeah.
I did was I went for a 2 minute run at a 12-minute pace, and I was a wreck. I literally could not handle a 2 minute run with a 12-minute pace. And the only reason I remember that first run was because I was told when I was playing beach volleyball one time, because I grew up, I lived out on the beach, that I was a horribly looking runner. They said you look like a wounded antelope. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I better hire somebody to teach me how to run. So
Yeah.
he said, okay, well, we're going to start out with like a little 12-minute pace just so I can check your gait and see what you're doing wrong. And less than 2 minutes in, I pulled over and sat down. He goes, dude, you're not a runner, are you? I go, no, man.
Oh,
And I told my story, and he said, when did you quit smoking? I said, last night. He's like, dude. So I did. This is in a February, and you'll get this because you're a fitness person. In February, I stopped smoking. Beginning of March, I did a 5K. End of March, I did my first triathlon. In April, I did a Olympic distance triathlon. In July, I did a half Ironman, and by November, I did my first full Ironman. So that's a
all in one
huge
year.
progression from
Yes.
50 pounds overweight, smoking, not moving, to doing an Ironman like 8 or 9 months later. That was
Did
crazy.
you feel like you just had already trained so much for that initial, like, I'm just going to keep the training going and what's my next eye on the prize? Where was your brain with this?
Here's where my brain was. So this is going to be a little bit doesn't make a lot of sense, but it I don't want to bore the audience with all the backstory behind it. But I actually did try an endurance athletic event in between the idea of quitting smoking and starting to be athletic. But it
Okay.
wasn't what I thought was an athletic event. It was more like of a amusement ride. It was a freak show event. I put on rollerblades and did an 87-mile rollerblade race.
No way.
Yeah, Athens, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia, 87 miles on rollerblades. It was a race. And I'm just like, all right, again, I won't bore you with all
I'm
the
in.
details,
I'm going
but
to do this.
all right, I'll do it. So I learned the most valuable lesson in my life on that race, without a doubt. And it's permeated the way I view the world, the way I've raised my kids, the way I look at myself in the mirror. It drives everything that is me, is this lesson that I learned on this race. So I'm heading up about mile 35, and it's up this mountain. I think it's called Heartbreak Hill or something like that, or Mount Disappointment, or some kind of wacky name, because it's an impossible hill. Like, unless you're and these people were athletes. I was just some dork out there on skates trying to do something, right? So I'm like 35 miles in, and I'm completely spent. I can see the sag wagon behind me, and they're just waiting to pick me up. And I am completely done, spent. And you'll know this from somebody who is a fitness person. When I leaned over, I had to turn my skate so I wouldn't fall downhill. When I leaned over on my knees and I was dripping sweat, it was so white because of all the salt, because I wasn't taking electrolytes or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
dripping white. It was unbelievable. But that white made this little line on the asphalt. Okay, so I see this little dripping line on the asphalt, and I go, dude, you either have two choices, right? You're either gonna let that sag wagon pick you up and take you to the finish line, and you could finish, you could have a cigarette and drink a little whiskey, and you could, like cry about what a loser you are, and then just move on to the next thing. Or you could take a step forward. And I just had this thought that if I didn't take a step forward, then I already knew everything about myself. Like I I'm looking backwards. I know everything I've ever gonna be is gonna be stopped at that line,
Yeah.
right? But if I just take one step forward past the line, I'm gonna find out something new. And if I take
So
another
good.
step and another step and another step, I'm gonna find something new. And I don't mean at that moment, but I think at that, like in theory, it was the truth. Like
Yeah.
I'm an unknown territory. I have no idea what I'm capable of because I just hit my wall and I busted through it one step
Yeah.
and then another. Eventually, I made the 50 miles and got to the finish line, collapsed. I still had my cigarette and whiskey, but I, because I still had that, it still didn't all stick in my head. But
Yeah.
that's when I said, geez, man, like you have no idea what you can do. Why don't you start doing stuff on purpose?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that is crazy. I love those moments where something just gets crystal clear,
Hmm.
where you go, oh, for you to be like one step, one roll, whatever that looked like since we were on
Right,
rollerblades.
right, right. It was a
But
roll, yeah. Very
yeah, it was
slow
a
roll,
roll.
very slow roll. I was always fighting that sag wagon. But the thing is that I like this idea of setting your goals really, really high, right? I got so into athletics that I got tested for my lactic acid, uh, my ability to flush lactic acid from my muscles, right? And I got
Yeah.
tested at a place where some Olympians were being trained, and I was sitting next to a really famous marathoner. Okay. And I'm like, well, I'm paying to be here. They're probably paying him to be here. But it's kind of cool. And so I started talking to him and he goes, I go, you're an Olympic marathoner. He goes, yeah, yeah. I go, you're a natural runner. He's like, nah. I said, man, imagine being an Olympic runner. He's like, you could be an Olympic runner. He says, anybody could be an Olympic marathon runner. It's just a matter of how hard you want to work. And I'm like, really? Like I thought you were either born an Olympic marathoner or you weren't
Right.
born Olympic. And we just saw in this last Olympics the woman that won the American that
Yeah.
right that won the silver, right? She won the silver. Yeah. Um, that was her third marathon she ever run. She had no idea she was a marathoner, and she overcame eating disorders and all this other stuff. She
Yeah.
made herself an Olympic marathoner. I'm like, wow, that dude was right. Anybody could do it. It's just a matter of how hard you want to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So, just for our listeners' purposes, to have full understanding of everything that you have done, because people
Mhm.
hear Ironman or they hear these long distance beyond marathon
Yeah,
runs. Can you explain what those are for us?
sure. So an Ironman is where you do a 2.4 mile swim, which if you're in a regular pool at the gym, it's like close to 200 lengths of the pool. So it's 2.4 mile swim. Then you do a 112 mile bike, and then you jump off your bike and you figure out a way to do a full marathon. So all told, it's like 140 miles. I've got one coming up in about 6 weeks in Tennessee. That'll be close to number 20 that I've done. Yeah, about 20
Whoa.
of them. And then I've done, I couldn't even count how many smaller triathlons. And then I started getting into running long distances because I said to myself, I go, if you could go from that to Ironman, what else could you do? And I go,
Yeah.
what would make you an athlete? And I go, because I didn't know, right? And
Yeah.
how you view yourself is very different, right? Than the way others might view you. But I
Right.
didn't feel like I was an athlete. I go, what would make me an athlete? And I go, oh, you know what make me an athlete is if I didn't train, like specifically train, and just one day I just woke up and said, I'm gonna run a marathon today. I go, if you could
Yeah.
do that, you'd be pretty athletic. So I did it. And then when I was done, I was feeling a little empty. And I go, no, you know what I think would really make you an athlete? Like if you didn't train and you woke up one day and said, I'm gonna put my tennis shoes on and run 50 miles. I go, no training. And I did that one day. I literally did that in the middle of August in the Southern California heat one day. As I just got up and I said, yeah, today's the day I'm going to go run 50 miles. And then I've run 100 miles. I did 4 back-to-back marathons. Um, I've done the latest, greatest, biggest thing I did was a 4,700-mile bike ride in
Oh my gosh.
41 days, self-support. I had support, but a solo bike ride. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I've done some crazy athletic
You
stuff.
really have. So I have so many questions behind this, though. So one, it just sounds like there has been built a love of all of this, right? Like
Uh-huh.
there is true passion. Is any part of this anymore for weight maintenance, or like, do you ever fear that if you stop doing all these crazy events that you could see yourself reverting, or are you just such a new person at this point that that's not even
Yeah,
a
no, it's a
worry?
thing. I feel like it unless you're singularly focused on one thing and which is really hard. Whoever does, everybody's got too much on their plate. Everybody's got varying demands on their time. It's just not possible to be, at least I don't think it is possible to be so regimented that you can go, from your first day of adult awareness to today and be perfect in all areas. It's just not possible, right?
Right.
Um, so I hadn't done an Ironman because the pandemic made the Ironman postpone. And then, I started doing a bunch of other things, and all of a sudden I step on the scale and I'm like, dude, you're like 15 pounds heavier than you should be. You better start getting in shape. So it's not a yo-yo. It's not a like aware. I could care less if I'm 15 pounds overweight. I
Mhm.
just, or if I'm in great shape, I really could care less. It's a matter
Mhm.
of like, am I doing the things that I want to do? Am I choosing to spend my time the way I need to? And if I am, sometimes that's going to make me focus on being healthy and athletic, and sometimes it's not. You know,
Right.
I love to
Right.
I love to cook. I love to host parties. And my wife and I do that a lot, like with family and friends and stuff. And sometimes she'll look at me and she'll go, dude, stop cooking. Like I'm getting heavy. Like stop cooking. For her, like 3 pounds, 3 pounds is a lot of weight to put on. For me, I don't even notice till it's like 15 pounds. And then I look in the mirror and I'm like, whoa, dude, you better start running. So I'm not a freak about it, but I definitely uh, like having a goal of continuing to push to be athletic and shape, feeling good. You know, it feels good to go out and run 10 miles or jump on my
Yeah.
bike for 3 hours and bike for, 40 miles and just say, hey, that was a good way to spend a couple hours. It's kind of fun.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so first of all, I've never had to tell my husband to stop cooking.
Yeah,
That will be the day I
that's
will email
hilarious.
you and be like,
Ah,
listen, David, you're inspired. Second, how does your body do? This is a lot of pounding, a lot of
mhm.
pavement, does your body actually respond pretty well to all these long distances, or do you do a lot of recovery, fitness center type things?
It does. And there, yeah, I mean, look, this is your world, right? And in your world, that it's like a roller coaster. Oh, you should do long and slow distances. No, you should do high intensity short, right? Oh, you should sleep more. No, you should sleep at the right time of the day. Oh, you should eat these macros. No, you should eat these macros at these times of the it just always changes, right?
Right.
Right. I
Yes.
mean, it's so I've just found that I feel like I'm much better at going long and slow than I
Yeah.
am at going hard and fast. And part of the reason, Lindsay, is that my secondary benefit, which is probably more important than the primary benefit, is I love the meditative state that long and slow gives me. So
Hmm.
some of your audience might think this is stupid, but I beg you to try it one day. Go watch a 2 hour movie when you're totally stressed out or you got a lot of stuff on your mind. And then after the end of the 2 hour movie, go back to your life and see how much the stress went away. I don't think it did. Okay.
Yeah.
You escaped it for a couple of hours, but it didn't go away.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, reverse that and go, no, instead of sitting down and watch a movie for 2 hours, I'm going to go lace on my shoes and go run for 2 hours out in the desert.
Yeah.
When you come back, you will have a lot less stress. You will have solved some of your problems. It's a very um, imaginative state, a creative state. It's a self-fixing state. You you focus on what's important and you kind of sift through all the nonsense. And I have solved more problems, you know, going on a 6 hour bike ride than I could imagine. Like,
Yeah.
so that's a secondary benefit. So for me, it's not difficult to want to do that because I'm striving to find that place. You know, some people find a runner's high. I find like a meditative, problem solving, get calm with myself place.
Oh, thank you for giving that homework to the listeners because I 100% agree with you. I really feel like I noticed mine when it was taken away, meaning I've always liked to work out, but once I had kids, my time got really restricted and limited. And to have that taken away, and now my kids are back in school, to the luxury of being able to go out and do an hour long walk can even feel like a nice long, but you're right, you walk out of it rejuvenated, refilled. I have hard
Yep,
conversations when I'm out walking because I can handle them better than if I'm just sitting. So
totally.
yeah, it's being aware, like you're saying, and that's why I'm loving the homework to the listeners, is because if we all become very aware of how we're walking away from these situations and find
Hmm.
a different why behind starting in the first place, we're
Hmm.
not going to go out to go burn 100 or 300 or 500 calories. We're going out to come back more whole is awesome. So thank you. You're
Yeah,
so
yeah, for
yeah,
sure. And no, and I totally get that. And look, when you got young kids at home, it's different. And when your kids are in sports, it's different. And when your
yeah.
kids are out of the house, it's different. I mean, there's always not the right time to figure it out and do all the right stuff, but you got to try to do it when you can make the choice. And I was literally just 2 days ago having a conversation, 2 nights ago having a conversation with a really good friend of mine. He and his wife are getting ready to have their fifth kid. Okay. Who the
Oh,
hell does that in today's world? What's the matter with people? And anyway, so he has done a few Ironmans with me.
yeah.
And he goes, dude, remember when you used to train for an Ironman with your kids? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I don't think you get away with that kind of parenting today. So I'll tell you what I used to do. It's completely stupid, right? Because you got to do what you got to do when you do it. So I'm working, I'm full time, create more than full time. I'm working like time and a half at my work because I got a big position at a wealth management firm, and I got my kids at home. They might have been 6 or 7 at this time, and I got like all this other stuff going on, but I want to do another Ironman, and I go, when the hell am I gonna train?
Right.
So I trained when my kids were asleep,
Yeah.
and the way I
Yeah.
did that was I lived on a block, Lindsay, that was zero point 0.9 miles in a circle, in a square. And I literally would put them to bed and I would
And
put
you
on my shoes
circled.
and I would put on my shoes and I could run zero point 0.9 miles in about 8 minutes, 8, 9 minutes. And then I'd run 8 or 9 minutes. I'd walk inside. I go, oh my God, you're a horrible dad. They woke up, they went and got knives in the kitchen and killed each other. And then I walk in and of course they'd be dead asleep because it was middle of the night. And then I
Yeah.
go do another lap and I check on them going, oh, you're a horrible dad. Yeah, I'm sure, whatever.
Oh,
They've been
oh,
crying since the minute you left. No, they were sleeping. They never one time ever were awake, but I would
yeah.
just do a 0.9 miles, check on them, 0.9 miles, check on them, 0.9 miles. Sometimes I do 15 of those, right? Uh,
Oh,
and
brutal.
yeah, yeah, but it's like you gotta figure out when you could do it. When else am I gonna get 15-mile run
Right.
in? I'm not.
Right. Right.
You
No,
just gotta do it when you can
exactly.
do it.
Oh, and it is about that. It's about, I call it finding pockets of time, or it's taking advantage of those little moments when we can find them because life never just offers, maybe now, maybe again later on in life or
Mhm.
retired, like sometimes life offers, but very rarely. Can we talk about your ripple that happened or the bleeding over from one good decision into the next? Because it sounds
Yeah.
like you're happily married now. You have
Yep.
grown. Are your kids grown or
They
where
are
are you?
grown.
Okay.
23-year-old twins, man. I'm old.
You're not old. You're not a grandpa yet, are you?
Oh, hell no. I would literally, they, if I did, those grandkids would not have parents. I would kill them. Literally. They got a lot to do. Like they don't need that right now. They don't need that.
You will be the grandpa though, like out with strollers and running your grandkids in a
Yeah,
marathon,
I'm
I
gonna be
think.
like that Zepotech guy, when he would train for his events by putting his wife on his shoulders and going out for a run. I'll put the grandkids on my shoulders and go out for a run.
Suit up. Here we go.
Uh, but
Okay, so it rippled, right? So you
yeah.
started with I'm going to move more, I'm going to train,
Mhm.
which turned into what?
So I wrote a book called Winning in the Middle of the Pack that was my belief that in the middle of the pack, like basically you're not the last one finishing the line that everybody is rooting across, and you're not the first one finishing the line that everybody's hoping will win. You're in the middle where nobody really even notices, right? Which is
Hmm.
awesome. Like winning in the middle of the pack means you're not doing it for anybody else. You just do it for yourself. Like, right? Like it doesn't matter because nobody's watching, nobody cares. Nobody. When you tell somebody, like, I dare any of your listeners to tell somebody they're going to do their first 5K and then walk around the office, tell your friends, say, I'm going to do my first 5K. I guarantee you, not one single person after you did it will say, oh, how fast did you run?
Yeah.
Not one single one will ask for your time. You know what they're going to say? Oh my God, did you finish? Right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So winning in the middle of the pack is that. And in that, I kind of compare like lessons in life versus lessons running a very large business versus running 100 miles. So what are the lessons? So it's just permeated into all facets of my life. So when I think like something's really hard, okay, and I want to turn away from it because I don't want to do the hard thing, I go, well, you know what? Maybe it's supposed to be hard. Maybe it's like running 50 miles on no training. It's supposed to be hard. So if you
Hmm.
accept the fact that it's supposed to be hard, right, then it's not so hard anymore,
Hmm.
right? If you, if like from sport, I've learned sometimes you have to quit. Like sometimes you have to stop doing the thing that is putting you in danger. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I was in an abusive relationship with two young kids. There's a lot of danger involved in that, right? Real danger or just a lot of emotional nonsense. Sometimes you got to know when to quit. Other times you got to know when to ask for help,
Yeah.
right? Other times you got to know when you got to rely on yourself. So all these things I've learned in sport that I've taken into my life that say, you know what? Um, when things are tough, everybody has down periods, right? And it's kind of like when I'm doing an endurance athletic event and my stomach is shut down and I'm hating that I'm out there and it's like just brutal. I'm sludging through every single step and I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? Like literally, what are you doing? This is the stupidest thing ever.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh, okay, just take one step. Just one step, one step, one step, one step. Eventually you're going to feel better.
Right.
And eventually you do. Right. And so when things get really tough and I've got all this junk on my plate that I got to get through. I, not facing it is not going to help me get through it. Just one bite, just one step, just one little action. So I know it sounds trite because it's like all these little like one liners or something, but because, because it's just part of my, not my born DNA, but the DNA that I've transferred to be this person, right?
Yeah.
Because it's part of my DNA now. I have all these like kind of lessons I can draw on that
Yeah.
show me, can I tell you a super quick story?
Yeah.
Let me tell you this because I think your listeners will totally get this, and you as a trainer will get this. Okay, so I go to do my first half Ironman. Okay, and I still feel like what the hell am I doing here? Okay, and it's up in Northern California. It's a wave start, which means that they send different ages off at different times. Okay, and I'm in an age wage a wave that is like the fifth or sixth wave to go off. They send like 40 people at a time off, right, in 5 minute increments. So I'm an imposter. I'm still overweight, right? I'm only a few months away from smoking. I've never done any of these distances of a half Ironman. And I'm getting ready to do all three of them. And I'm about ready to talk myself out of doing the race. So I go to the start, which is a little bit further away from where I was, just to watch the people. And every single person is like you, right? They're like the fitness model of the year. Every dude looks like Apollo, and I'm just like, what the hell? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what am I doing here? Right?
Mm.
They're all chiseled from the freaking granite. Like, what the hell? I am not doing this thing, right? And just before I walk away, I say, oh, I'm just gonna watch them swim. And a gun goes off and they start swimming. And one dude immediately flips on his back and he starts paddling like he's and then another guy starts swimming like diagonal to the course, right? And I see another guy like take 2 steps because it's in a river, it's only about 3 feet deep. He takes
Yeah.
2 strokes and he stands up and he looks lost. And I'm like, all right, well, yeah, geez, if those guys don't know how to swim, I know how to swim,
Yeah.
right?
You're like, I got this.
Right. So what I learned from that is you can't compare what you are, what you could do to the way you perceive other people, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
when I walk into a room of people, I know I'm not going to be the smartest. I'm not going to be the best looking. I'm not going to be the richest. I'm not going to be the best in shape. But you want to know something? I just might, depending on what test you give me, come out ahead of all of those people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Just depend, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that once you learn that you can't compare yourself to other people, you belong exactly where you are, because none of those people that couldn't swim looked at me and said, "What the hell is that guy doing there?" They were worried
Right.
about their own crap. Like, how the
Right.
hell am I going to do this Ironman or half Ironman when I don't know how to swim? And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, man, that's so cool, right? Just focus on yourself
You got
and
it.
don't worry
Yeah.
about a thing.
Yeah.
It's really a pretty freeing thing. But who isn't out there listening, going, man, I walk into a gym and everybody looks better than me, or I walk into the room and everybody's smarter than me, or I whatever, right? We
Yeah.
all feel that way, and it's just a waste of freaking time.
It is. And you had like the experience of almost an out of body experience of watching it all go down, watching yourself get stopped by it and being able
Absolutely.
to, where I wish that for everybody, because you're right, nobody cares. Everybody's worried about themselves.
They
And
are, and they should be.
yeah, yeah. You'll like this one liner. Eyes on your own paper is something we say a lot in our community. But and
I
comparison's the
do.
thief of joy. I know those are all trite too, but I feel like we say it a lot because it's the difference of starting and stopping, versus keeping on your own track. Like the person who's doing phenomenal with eating or moving for a month or two, but they're not the one out training for a marathon. So they'll stop because they don't think they're doing enough, because somebody's always doing more. This is what I love about you, is that you're super hardcore, obviously, with
Mhm.
everything you're doing, but your messaging still comes back to one step, one step, one
Oh,
step.
no
Like,
question.
yeah.
No question.
And
I have a couple of things in my head that are always like lingering sayings, and they're not like write a inspirational note on a sticky and put it on the mirror and be that. Like, I'm not like I don't say mantras and then become that, but I throughout my the last 20 years, let's say, when I feel like I was alive, in a different way and a more purposeful way, certain things have come into my head and they just don't leave, right? So
yeah,
I know that if I was like 25 and I heard the following sentiment, it wouldn't have, I wouldn't have even heard it, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
when I was, around 38 or 39 and I heard this sentiment, it stuck with me forever because it came at the right time. And one of the
Yes.
founders of Iron Man said, I was listening to the guy, one of the guys that was there doing the first Ironman when they came up with this stupid idea of biking, running, and swimming these long distances. And he said, I wasn't sure if I could do it, right? He said, but I thought 2 things. One, he said, I might not finish first, but I'm going to finish ahead of a guy that never started. And I went, well, that's pretty good. And he
Yeah,
goes, and I knew that if I quit, nobody was going to care, but I'd
yeah,
always know. And
yeah,
I went, oh shit. that makes sense, because if you're trying to do things for yourself, then what you're always going to know what the result is. So why not just try to do your best, right?
Right.
If
Which comes
you
back to winning in the middle of the pack. That,
right. And it also comes back to all the stupid mistakes that I made because I wasn't aware of that, and because I wasn't thinking about what I cared about, and because I wasn't aware of doing my best, right? And
yeah.
I admire people that, kind of figure that out younger in life. Like, I really do, because to have the confidence and the belief and the awareness to start accomplishing things in a purposeful manner, to
Yeah.
me, is
Yeah.
like, that's grabbing life, man. And I just was late. I was late doing it, you know?
Well, you didn't have the easiest start there. So a lot of grace on,
Yeah.
I literally, my dad, I remember listening to motivational books on tape on our long drives to Hilton Head.
Oh
Like,
my God.
right. Can you imagine if you grew up listening to motivational tapes at the ripe old age of 8, 9, 10?
That's, you know what? I'm only gonna say my kids are gonna have that same experience, because I would put in the Iron Man World Championships on long drives on little DVDs in the car, and I put that in the back instead of watching Disney movies. They'd be watching
Yeah.
Iron Man, DVDs.
It sinks in. It
Ah,
goes. You didn't
oh
have
my
that.
God.
I
Oh
remember
my
about
God.
learning be an eagle, not a duck. Like take. I don't know if you ever listened to that one, but
That's
anyways,
hilarious.
I hear you, and I do think you've been role modeling it for your kids, which is really cool. You're changing the generations,
They
which
are
is a
definitely way, way more overachieving than I ever was at that age. I mean, look, I didn't even go to college, right? I mean, I've done a lot of, kind of cool things in business, but I never even went to college. I did for a couple of semesters, but I didn't have the opportunity to continue because life just got in the way. I got twins that just both got their masters, right? One at the University of
oh
Chicago, one over at Cambridge. Like, wow. I mean, these guys are smart. Like,
yeah.
between them, they literally have lapped me 4 times with their degrees,
Oh,
right?
and
And
just
so,
proud dad, right? Just
yeah, but
beaming
it's
over
kind of
there.
it's
Yeah.
it's kind of cool, because I just, I remember telling them, like, sorry for boring you with a little personal story, but I'm going to give it to you. My daughter took up golf, and she took up golf at a very late age, just right going into high school. And there was a certain golfer at that time that was just winning every single tournament, like every
Oh,
single
I'm
tournament.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, she was unbeatable. Okay. And I said to her, I go, well, you know what? You could beat her. And she's like, no, I can't. I just started playing golf. She wins every single tournament. And I go, well, somebody's going to beat her. So why not you? Somebody's going to end up beating her. So why not you? And of course,
Yeah.
somebody came along and made her look like not a very good golfer, right? But I said to her, I go, it doesn't. You could do whatever you want to do. Like she got to be that good, and somebody's going to make it so that she's not that good, right?
Right.
Why not you?
Love it. Yes. Yes. It's
Right? Why
just
not?
this continual thought process that, like, I'm allowed to be that person. I'm allowed to change my image of what, like, you having this label of non-athlete to all of a
Mhm.
sudden, I'm allowed to go be an Ironman. I'm allowed to be
Yeah.
a 100-mile marathoner
Hmm.
is awesome. That's why, yeah, you broke free of your labels and you're helping again, like daughters create non-labels. They can do anything.
Yeah. Oh, no
Yeah.
question. And I always say to them, and I say, to employees and stuff, and I go, look, my job is not to ask you to reach a certain goal. My job is to help you get to the goal that you set for yourself. My only question to you is, are you setting a high enough goal?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Are you setting a high enough goal? Right? So if your goal is I'd like to get down to 5,000 calories of intake a day, I'm not sure that's a high enough goal. Like right? You probably should be eating 2,000 calories a day, but I mean, really, are you setting a high enough goal? Okay. My goal is I would like to one day put on those new tennis shoes that I bought so I can go for a walk. No, is that a high enough goal? No, no. Or if you say,
Yeah.
I want to come home not miserable from work every day. Really, is that a high enough goal? Like, are we setting high enough goals? And so If a guy coming from where I came from could strap on shoes on no training and do 50 miles, that's a high enough goal, right? And
Yeah.
and I could do it, and it's nothing special. Like, you could do it if you wanted to do it. But I'm not saying you should want to do that. But whatever goal you're setting for yourself, is it a high enough goal, right?
Yes.
And and if it is, and you accomplish it, that's a springboard for you to do more,
To
right?
do
I
more.
mean, you know that
You'll
you
love
see
this.
people hit levels all the time.
Yes. So my husband and I have this conversation a lot because I think because I'm direction, not perfection oriented, and like I feel like my people need to know the difference between like striving for perfection versus striving for greatness, right?
Mhm.
And so we laugh because my husband was like, I'd write a book called Direction with Perfection. Your
Yeah,
mind's direction, not perfection. I'm like, we're actually both saying the same thing. We're
yeah,
both saying what you just said, David, is set your goals high, reach for the stars. But mine is just with like a special emphasis on importance of it's greatness, not perfection. And we
yeah.
get caught up in like your example of perfection would be getting caught up in your finishing time
Right.
when caring too much about a time versus did I cross the finish line? Am I continuing to do these races? The
Absolutely.
answer is yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't like, I always have a goal in mind. Like, I'd like to do it in X amount of time, but I don't think I've ever hit it,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes I'll say I'd like to do it without complaining one time. That's a goal. That's not perfection, right? That's getting it done. Or I go,
Yeah.
okay, I'd like to only walk during the aid stations. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I'll say, I'd like to on the run pass 12 people because they write their ages on their calf. I'd like to pass 12 people that are more than 20 years younger than me, or some stupid goal, right?
Yeah.
Just because
Yeah.
it'll force me to like focus on just freaking have fun and do what you do, like
Right.
whatever. So I play all those stupid games with myself, but I think that it isn't about perfection. It's definitely for me, it's about the journey of seeing what you're capable of accomplishing. And then once you figure that out, figuring out how to take one more step or one more role or one more length of event or, one more healthy step or whatever, to just
Yes.
go, okay, if I did that, I could push it further. If I did that, I could push it further. Like, I don't know what my limit is. I definitely don't know.
Yes. Ah, so good. Seriously, thank you so much for coming on and doing all of this. Like the inspiration. You've given us good homework. You've given us these thoughts. Um, I can picture your book sitting on people's end tables just as this nice visual inspiration of, man, he can do this. I can do this. So,
Yeah.
where can we find your book? Where can we find you?
Well, I have a few books. I just came out with a book that is exploring 15 people's emotional journeys with cancer, and I wrap those stories around the narrative of a 4,700-mile bike ride that I took to go meet each one of these people for the first time after I'd been talking to him for a couple of years. So I've that. I got winning in the middle of the pack. I've got some free guides on like how to do your first 5K or whatever. I mean, I know you have a ton of stuff on your free stuff on your website that try to help people along their journey. I think it's awesome. But if anybody's still a reader, I don't know if anybody reads books anymore, but if anybody's still a reader, they could go to cycleoflives.org or look up David Richman or look up Winning in the Middle of the Pack. And yeah, their books are sold wherever books are sold.
All right. That's awesome. Truly, thank you for your time and all your positive energy today. I
Yeah,
appreciate
you're
you.
welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.